Good morning. Today is Thursday, June 12th, 2025. We are in the graduation speech season. I don't remember who spoke at my graduation. I certainly don't remember what they said. But every year, there are a few that break through. A few graduation speeches that have a level of wit and wisdom to the extent that they are really memorable. Not many, but a few. We will see in this year's season what happens, but I want to share something from last year. So this is a year ago, 2024. And Roger Federer, the great tennis player, gave the commencement address at Dartmouth College. Now, if you follow tennis or you know, Roger Federer is probably one of the greatest tennis players that ever lived. In his career, which he had just ended at the time that he gave this speech, he had played 1,526 singles matches and won almost 80%. He won the Grand Slam trophy 20 times, and that includes winning Wimbledon a record 8 times. One of the greatest tennis players of all times. And so, during his speech, he said to the students at Dartmouth, he said, "Now I have a question for you. What percentage of points do you think I won in those matches?" And he paused. And then he answered his own question. Only 54%. Now, it's one of those statistics that at first seems impossible to believe, because Federer was one of the most dominant athletes of the century. And this is a guy who lost nearly half of the points. But he said to them, when you lose every second point on average, you learn not to dwell on every shot. You teach yourself to think, okay, I double faulted. That means he lost the point. It's only a point. When you're playing a point, it has to be the most important thing in the world, and it is. But when it's behind you, it's behind you. And this mindset is really crucial because it frees you to fully commit to the next point, and the next point after that with intensity and clarity and focus. Obviously, he's reflecting on tennis, but obviously that is a truth that applies in every endeavor of life. So, Rustin Dodd is a writer for The Athletic. The Athletic is a sports news organization that I find writes very, very thoughtful pieces, interesting pieces about sports. Interesting, even if you don't, like me, normally follow sports a lot. I like sports, but I don't really follow so much, but many of the articles I find fascinating. So Rustin Dodd wrote an article in The Athletic to analyze this speech. And he writes, ahead of the first anniversary of Federer's speech, I set out to answer a simple question. Why did it connect? And by the way, connect it did with millions of views and people talking about it all over. You may have heard about it. Why did it connect? So, Rustin Dodd says that Federer's speech lasted 25 minutes and was structured to share 3 lessons. Now, Federer called them 3 tennis lessons, all of which came from his long and successful career in tennis and his own, so to speak, graduation from tennis because he recently retired. But of course, as I said before, all 3 of these lessons apply in every area of life. The first lesson is that effortless is a myth. Because as long as Federer was playing, commentators would always remark on how easy he made it look. He would glide around the court, didn't seem to break a sweat. But Federer explained there is only one way to make something look that easy. It's not about having a gift. It's about having grit. He worked at it, and he worked harder than anyone else. And Dodd makes the point that this point that Federer made was embodied in the speech itself, because Roger Federer had spent 6 months working on this speech, going through drafts and making revisions. He spent 6 months preparing to deliver this speech. Vinay Reddy is a former speechwriter for President Joe Biden, and he said about Roger Federer's speech, he put the time in, not just going up there and reading something. And it's the things we keep telling ourselves growing up, no matter what you do. Just keep practicing, keep working, keep learning. There are just some things that are very enduring about discipline. Effortless is a myth. That's number one. Number two, Federer said, it's only a point. And here he shared the story of his loss in a tennis match at Wimbledon in 2008 that many people consider to be one of the greatest tennis matches of all times. So it's the finals of Wimbledon, which is considered one of the most important and prestigious tennis tournaments. It's the final against Rafael Nadal. And Federer lost the first 2 sets. And then he barely won the next 2 sets, so it was even. And they went to a 5th set. Normally, a tennis match is decided by the best of 3. You have to win 3. But since they were tied, it went to 5. And in that 5th set, which was the deciding set, Federer lost 9-7. And by the time they finished, it was almost dark. So he said about that loss, he said, you can work harder than you thought possible and still lose. Perfection is impossible. And that's when Federer referenced his career record and the percentage of points won, 54%. And then he said, negative energy is wasted energy. You want to become a master at overcoming hard moments. We have made this point, I don't know how many times, in how many ways. But of course, Federer could make it in a way that only he could make it. If you lose 1 point, there's no use wallowing, because there might be another point that means more. The match is long. There's always time to come back. How we respond when we have failed at something, that's what's going to determine our ultimate success, not the fact that we failed once. And by the way, this is an easy concept to apply to any field. I'll give you an example. In 2022, Ronald Van Loon. Now, Ronald Van Loon is a portfolio manager at BlackRock. BlackRock is one of the largest investment companies in the world. And a portfolio manager means that he's the one to help clients to decide what they should invest in, what they should get out of in order to make a profit. So in 2022, this portfolio manager, Ronald Van Loon, authored a paper. Now listen to what it was. on the percentage of investment decisions that need to be correct to beat market benchmarks for returns. Okay, in other words, what percentage of investment decisions do I have to make correctly in order to make a profit? And he analyzed a great deal of computer data, and he came up with the following number: 53%. Amazing. That's all you have to do well in investing. Make the right decision 53% of the time. Now, every speaker knows one of the most important parts of any speech is connecting with the audience. Stephen Cohen is a professor of business at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And he said Federer utilized in this speech a strategy that he, Cohen, teaches in his course, and it's called What's in it for them? What's in it for your audience? What Federer does here that is so powerful is he captures the moment and he understands what's keeping these students up at night. It's the fact they're transitioning from one part of their life to another. Just like Federer is transitioning from being a tennis pro, he's retiring, and he's got to figure out what comes next. So this sets up Federer's third and final lesson. And again, applies in every area of life. But the way Federer put it is, the third lesson is that life is bigger than tennis. Somewhat before, Federer had given an interview on ESPN, and he said that throughout his professional career, he had two goals. He wanted to have fun, and he wanted to keep the audience awake. Those are two very good goals. That's my take on life. We've got to have fun along the way. So listen to this. When Federer was 14 years old, he left home in Basel to attend school in the French part of Switzerland. He was homesick at first, but he came to appreciate the act of exploration, of traveling the world, experiencing new cultures, and undertaking what he called life on the move. He enjoyed it for many, many years. And he also had the realization, once he started, it became apparent that he was such a prodigy at tennis, I knew that tennis could show me the world. He traveled the world playing tennis and winning at tennis. I knew that tennis could show me the world, but tennis could never be the world. And this is such an important lesson for every single one of us. Any one part of our lives, no matter how holy, no matter how central, no matter how important, any one part of our lives cannot be our lives. So once he had given the 3 lessons, he finished up with a real tennis lesson. It happened that it was raining. Okay, fine. But he stood on the stage and he took a tennis racket, and first he demonstrated the correct way, according to him, to hold the racket. The grip that you have on the racket is very, very important, where your fingers should be, where your knuckles should be, in order to be able to have swings in both directions. So he demonstrated that. And then he's standing on the stage and he demonstrates, the proper way to swing at a tennis ball and to follow through. And he demonstrated the footwork, how you have to move your feet. And then he smiled. And then he said, "No, this is not a metaphor. It's just good technique." To which I would add, smiling is always good technique. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.